I wish I had learned this truth many years ago. Be thankful for the days, good and
All
bad.
right, welcome to Warrior vs. Zombie podcast number 9 with Rickey Gene Wright, and we're looking forward to talking to you. Let me tell you a little bit, if you haven't joined us before on Warrior vs. Zombie. With Warriors, success is a journey, it's not a destination. As Warriors, we all have a history of ups and downs, wins and losses that are all part of making us who we are up to this point and provide a foundation for our path forward. We're all battle our inner zombie as well as those zombies in our world. In each episode, I interview warriors. Got a good one here today, who are aspiring leaders from all walks of life. Entrepreneurs, artists, health practitioners, business owners, really any inspired leader that has a story. These warriors have a cause, they have a unique value and a vision that goes generations into the future. Today we're going to talk to Rickey Gene Wright. This is actually, Rickey joined us on my very first podcast, and we enjoyed it so much. We're now coming back for an encore and going to drill a little deeper. And now that I've gotten a little better at this, I'm looking forward to talking about Rickey a little bit. Rickey Gene is a true warrior. He's a Texan. He's an Americana singer-songwriter. I guess he's an Americana singer-songwriter, so that's fair. He writes and sings acoustic ballads and travels down the road between folk and country music. So that's kind of where he navigates his music. If you listen to his music, you may notice influences from bluegrass, acoustic blues, and those hymns and inspirational music that he grew up with. Along with his duet partner Denise Owen, Rickey Gene has 3 released albums and singles, and he's working on an ongoing 4th album, and we're looking forward to hearing that. I'm sure that one of the songs that I'm hoping for is going to be on there. Rickey Gene has been involved in numerous music adventures, including country opry circuit in Texas and Oklahoma, and in the 1980s, when he first received recognition as a songwriter with his song titled Frank and Jesse James. In the 90s, he led contemporary worship music at 2 different churches for over 15 years, writing songs. The most notable, Your Mercy is a Blessing, was recorded by a worship leader who currently leads worship in a church in Austin. He's also experienced networker, where I met Rickey, through which he became friends with a Grammy Award-winning musician, producer, and recording engineer, Mr. Brad Davis, who's worked with Rickey on a number of projects and become one of his biggest fans. Finally, Rickey's networking led to our relationship and him writing and recording the theme song you hear every week. It's Not the Getting There. For this podcast, you're going to hear it today. So, without any further ado, Rickey Gene Wright.
Hello, hello, hello.
How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. Just kind of amazing to see the progression of your skills in this podcasting journey that you're on.
Well, I appreciate the encouragement. We're definitely on a journey, right? So wanted to kind of do a check-in with you, as we always do on Warrior vs. Zombie. And so what's going on in your world of this craziness we're going through, the COVID and all the other shutdown and startup and everything else that's going on? How's your world?
Well, of course, like all the rest of the musicians, singer-songwriter out there, we've been completely shut down as far as going out and live concerts. And so that part of our plan and part of our income completely went away. But I have always been a person who looks at, the glass is still half full. I've always have a positive outlook. And I made a list of things that I was behind on that I really needed to get caught up. And a lot of the things about being an entrepreneur is you do a lot of things yourself. So I had a lot of things on my music to-do list that I needed to get done. And so I've been taking this opportunity to get her done.
So what kind of things have you gotten done? I know some of them, but I think the audience would like to hear some of the things, some of the ways you. I guess you just didn't watch Netflix and chill, so you've been doing a lot of stuff. I know. So share that. I think it's very fascinating. Some of the things you've done.
Well, I had to get YouTube caught up and in a situation where I could use YouTube as a tool, and people could go there, and prospective music venues could go there and see live performances. And what I found out is that you can't have like a 2-hour show on there; that nobody's going to watch that in its entirety. And in the meantime, all of a sudden, YouTube sent me a note and said that they were making my YouTube channel an official artist YouTube channel. I had almost 5,000 views on my YouTube channel and like 50 something videos. So I've been working hard on that. And then I had like 3 or 4 or 5 songs that had already been recorded. And I've been going through this process of releasing singles, and when I get 10 or 12 singles, then pick out the song that's going to be the title song of an album and release another album. And I've been prompted to do that by my friend and mentor and producer, Brad Davis. He said that's what's being done now today. Instead of just releasing the album where songs get lost, just release every song as a single, and then when you get them all released, that might take a year, maybe hopefully not any longer than a year. So I've been doing that, and one of those songs just happened to be a song that I had the idea had been rolling around in my head, and then I was inspired to go ahead and get the song down on paper. And whenever I would go to Richardson Plano Networking, and there was Mr. Dave Roberts, and he would always talk about the most valuable thing that we have is our time. And it just kind of fit into my idea about, it's really the journey is the most important thing, not the destination. You can't carry all that money, all that gold with you whenever it's all over. So I've been working on that. So I've released 3 or 4 songs during this time, written some new things, got more experience with live streaming videos with some mini concerts. And so there was a lot of things that I had to sort of catch up on the curve. But then there was a lot of things that were laying right there that I just needed to get done and hadn't done them yet. Because when you release a single, it's like releasing an album. You have to have artwork. You have to, everything has to fall in place. You just can't say, here's a song, world. There's a lot of back story things that people don't realize happens whenever you release a single or release an album.
Yeah, that's it's fascinating to me. I've kind of getting to know you a little bit, kind of gotten a little bit of that singer-songwriter life that you have, and you're a constant, as most warriors are, you're continually learning, you're continually growing. And what I've seen during this time is, somebody who's not willing to just sit there and wait for things to change, but you are out there changing your own world. And so that's a fascinating thing. Well, I guess what we're going to do, this is a great place to kind of take a quick break, and then we're going to come back, and I want to hear more about kind of your story, kind of where you came from, and just share that with the audience in terms of how you got here. I shared a little bit in the introduction, but I really want to have you kind of share it. You're a great storyteller and can reflect on all of the things that you've gone through. I want to hear a little bit about that. So in the next segment. So this is Warrior versus Zombie, and this is Dave Roberts, and I'm here with Rickey Gene Wright, and we'll be right back after a little snippet of It's Not the Getting There by Rickey Gene Wright.
but the miles become the teacher while the student learns real slow, traveling blind most of the time. Wherever you go, it's not the getting there, it's the journey every day. It's not a race to see.
All right, we're back with Rickey Gene Wright and Warrior versus Zombie, and this is one of my favorite parts. They're all my favorite parts, but this part of our podcast of our journey here is to kind of hear a little bit of Rickey's story, and I love hearing. He's a great storyteller, and I love to hear his stories. So, Rickey Gene, tell us a little bit about how you got on this road and where you've come along the way and how you got to today.
Well, I came from a family where we were a cappella singers because of our church background, and I grew up in the Church of Christ, and it was a big emphasis on singing, and I learned to sing different harmony parts, the tenor and the bass, according to the shape notes. And of course, my mother was a singer, and she also played the guitar, and she played old country songs and hymns. And when I was about 8 years old, she went and bought me a guitar at the neighborhood drugstore. It wasn't an expensive guitar, but it was a guitar. And I think in retrospect, it was so I would leave her guitar alone, and I would just have my own little guitar. And I went on from there, and I would, as a kid, I would make up funny songs and entertain people, and never really thought that I was, I guess, a songwriter. I was just being funny and entertaining people. And as I got to be a teenager, I started thinking more seriously about writing songs. And some of those songs, now that I think back when I was a teenager, they were lovesick song kind of things and not really very good. And what I've noticed about songwriting is you get better at songwriting, even though it may be a natural thing. You have some natural talent. You do get better as you practice the art. When I moved, I had just been married a year, and me and my wife, Rickey, we moved up to the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And I think subconsciously to be halfway between where her folks lived in Oklahoma and where my folks lived, which is Southeast Texas, where I met Rickey. When her family was transferred down there, and then they eventually moved back, left her there with me. But there in, I guess it was like late 70s, early 80s, I got involved in the country opry circuit. I sang in 1980, I believe, in the Oklahoma City Opry. It was live on the radio, the FM radio station there. It's kind of a pretty scary thing for me. Then I got involved in other Opries around here in North Texas, country Opry shows, and wound up working for the Mesquite Opry for a couple of years as the band leader and auditioner, while I was also sang on the show every week as one of the guests. It was that time that I had written the song Frank and Jesse James, and we won a Battle of the Bands contest. We entered somewhere here in the North Texas area and got some free studio time, and that particular song went with the drummer when he went off to Nashville probably a year later, and he had been telling every band that he was in for 25 years, hey, here's a great song. I know the guy who wrote the song. Let's learn this song. And he called me about 25 years later and said, man, we've been playing this song around in the bars in Nashville forever. Have you ever got this song copyrighted or registered with ASCAP or BMI. Well, that was one of the aha moments about songwriting that made me realize that maybe I should do something instead of just write songs and never really do anything. In other words, go from it being something I love to do and a hobby, and then go ahead and treating it as a business. So I also realized when I did my 15 years service as a praise and worship leader at a contemporary Christian worship band. 10 of those years I was the worship leader, and 5 I was a member. That I would write songs and people would use them at other churches. And so I was thinking, maybe this songwriting thing is something that I could really do. And then lo and behold, the streaming music industry came alive, and the so-called golden era of songwriting, where you got paid a lot of money whenever a song was released. Someone else, used the song that you wrote and it was released, because there was a lot of royalties paid from the radio stations and record sales. Well, then all of a sudden that came to an end, and the streaming music industry completely changed things. So about the time I was thinking about really getting serious about it, it all changed, right? It was like right before my eyes. So I had to come up with different ways of how am I going to do this business when it's not the business that I remembered, or not even anything like I had heard about. And but guess what? I found myself in the same boat as even the successful songwriters that had been paid good royalties over the years. Now we're kind of all in this together. It's not that doesn't sound that great, but here we are. What are we going to do? So I met people through networking. I met people through music networking, through business networking. And it just dawned on me when I was sitting in a business networking class, maybe I should treat songwriting and being a singer and a musician like a business, because I'm not going to go anywhere unless I take it seriously. So instead of jumping up and running off to Nashville or New York or Los Angeles or someplace, I decided to stay in my favorite place, which is Texas, and start treating songwriting like a business. One of the first things that I got a little glimpse of genius from the business people was I was sitting in a business network meeting, and someone said, if you don't have a good domain name, you're spinning your wheels out there in the social media world. And I had the domain name RickeyGeneWright.com. Well, nobody knew who Rickey Gene Wright was. It really wasn't helping me. So right there on my phone, I started searching for things that I wanted people to know about me, and there would be a good domain name. And I typed in AmericanaSingerSongwriter.com, and guess what? No one had that domain name. Right there in that business network meeting, before it was over, I bought it. And to me, business networking then sort of opened the door for me that, now, wait a minute. Let me start treating this like a business. So if you were to go and just Google Americana singer-songwriter and you didn't know who I was, guess what? I'm on that very first page just because of that advice I got in a business networking meeting. So then I started thinking, well, now, wait a minute. There's got to be some other things that business networking can lead me to. And lo and behold, someone in business networking knew someone that that knew someone that was involved in a, a really a real classy singer-songwriter venue in Waxahachie, Texas. And lo and behold, they introduced me to them, and I started singing there. And someone introduced me to someone who, through business networking, that knew a little bit about Poor David's Pub, and I went and got introduced there and did a couple of concerts there, which is kind of a really iconic singer-songwriter place here in North Texas. And I was just thrilled that this business networking stuff was beginning to work out. So I started telling people, hey, I'm an Americana singer-songwriter. Started getting actual corporate event offers to one corporate event. They asked me if I could sing my songs, but sing some songs like I was from Austin, sort of that Austin vibe, and a lot of the Austin has a lot of history of Texas music. And so I got that gig and was able to mix my songs in with cover songs. And then I started thinking about, well, there's TV, there's movies, there's podcast. Lo and behold, started thinking about, well, what about doing music for podcasts? And that's how, of course, the song "It's Not the Getting There" came about, and you liked it so well that you used it on this podcast here. So it's kind of a wild and crazy thing how when you decide to take a stand. And by the way, that song Frank and Jesse James, after I talked to my long lost friend, the next day I went and had that registered with BMI. And so just some aha moments and some business networking things kind of opened my eyes and said, let's do it. Here we go.
So you've brought us a long way here from the beginning of a kid playing a guitar to all the things you've learned through networking. And that's one of the things I think you know, because I know you're part of the group, is that a warrior, life is still a team sport, and we learn a lot through networking if you pay attention. If you're just not there, if you think networking is something where you just go and you're just pitching your stuff, you don't understand networking. But it's an opportunity to learn, it's an opportunity to teach, and it's an opportunity to mentor. There's just so many things that you can do, and that's what I heard in your story. Let me ask you one question, and then we're going to take a quick break and come back, and we'll talk about kind of where you are and where you're going, pick up where we kind of left off in the introductory segment. What was the biggest hurdle you had to overcome, or the biggest zombie, as I say in Warrior versus Zombie, that you've had to overcome in your journey?
Well, I think it was finding a balance, because the music business is kind of like the rodeo business. It can get in your blood, and it can just run your whole life. You can be so addicted to it that you just let everything else in your life go to pot. And of course, you hear the stories about the musicians who their lives just fell apart. I decided back in about 1983, when I was really involved in the country Opry circuit, that I wasn't going to go off to Nashville, that my wife was pregnant with our first child, and I had some responsibilities, and I was going to keep those responsibilities, and I wound up having two more children in 2 years after that, and then 4 years after that. And so the biggest obstacle that I had was that I had to find this balance, but not give up the dream. because it's so easy to get out of balance or give up the dream. So that was the greatest hurdle, is being balanced in my life.
Just yeah, and I can understand that. It sounds like there was forces working that pull you back, but you kept powering forward, and we're here today. All right, well, Rickey, we're going to take a quick break here and listen to a little more of your music, and it's not the getting there. This is Dave Roberts, Warrior versus Zombie with Rickey Gene Wright, and we'll be back in a moment to talk about where he is and where he's going. All right.
It's not a race to see how many people know your name. One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there. When you get there, you'll know. Funny how wisdom and youth are always two different games.
All right, we're back with Rickey Gene Wright. This episode of Warrior versus Zombie, and we kind of learned a lot about how he got to be where he is today. But today, what I want to talk to you about is, where do we go forward, Rickey Gene? Tell me a little bit about, after this much of your journey, what you've learned about why you're doing what you're doing, your cause, what you're trying to accomplish, value that you've provided, and then if anything were possible, what would this whole singer-songwriter, what would your life look like?
I want to be remembered as a person who was a good storyteller, a good songwriter, and not necessarily a superstar. I would love to sing to small, intimate audiences that are listening. I'm really don't have a big desire to sing to groups of people who are not listening, because I'm really big on the lyrics of the songs that I write and the lyrics of the songs that other people write even. And they're very, very important. And to be background music is really not something that I'm interested in. One of my songwriting heroes, Mr. Guy Clark, he always said that he wanted to be remembered as a guy who had some good songs in his satchel. And that's me. I want to write good songs. And I'm trying to adapt, and I think I am adapting to the ever-changing music business and what has happened, and trying to adjust. And I like I said, I don't necessarily want to sing to 50,000 people in an audience. I really love the interaction that I have when I can see people and see their emotions. And at first I was kind of taken back a little bit that my songs drew, like the song that I had written on my first album, Waiting on My Time, how that just really every time I sang that song, it pulled some heartstrings and people were wiping tears in their eyes. So that gave me great joy. And I guess you'd say, what have you done in your life that you felt the most satisfied? Well, that was it right there. When I sang a song that I had written, and it touched somebody, made their day better or pulled their heartstrings and they even teared up. That right there made me realize that's what I was meant to do. I was meant to be a singer, songwriter, and tug on the heartstrings of the audience, and tug on the heartstrings of people that listen to the recorded songs, singles, and albums. And I guess you'd say that when I realized that it was the journey that was the most important thing in my life, and I realized that way back when my wife was pregnant with our first child, that to run off somewhere and make a gazillion trillion dollars and be a superstar really wasn't that important. What was really important was the journey and the loved ones and the friends that I was making. And somehow, some way, I don't know if it was my upbringing of hearing that kind of thing talked about in churches, and it kind of gave me a level head. Maybe I guess you'd say. So that's where I am today, and I'm just going to continue on the journey. And who knows what song I write tomorrow is the song I'm supposed to write that really helps people and helps them on their journey. Who knows? Maybe the song "It's Not the Getting There" is that song.
Well, it sure helps me on my journey, whether it's a journey of the podcast or it's in my head all the time. So I guess that's my unique value and my purpose and where I am today. And if anything was possible, that would be I'd never run out of an audience to sing to. That would be the thing that I'd say if anything was possible. Well, that sounds like a pretty good dream. Living your ideal day is always having an audience to hear what you have to sing. All right. Well, we're gonna call it at this point, and we're gonna come back, and I'm gonna give you a little bit of time to prep in our break here. But I'm gonna ask you, what are the two most important things, Rickey, that you've learned in the journey so far that you would like the other warriors to take away from this podcast? So and then you can tell us a little bit about how we can find you and keep up with your music and be in your audience going forward. So with that, we're going to take a quick break, hear a little more of "It's Not the Getting There" by Rickey Gene Wright, and we'll be back with the final Land the Plane segment of Warrior versus Zombie.
Funny how wisdom and youth are always two different games. The years flew by so fast is the common human complaint. The memories in our minds turn to diamonds in our soul, and by the grace of God, on down the road we go.
All right, we're back to the Land the Plane segment of Warrior versus Zombie here with Rickey Gene Wright. And as I told you before the break, Rickey, what would you leave our audience with? Give us one or two things that if we took away anything from your journey or from where you're at or what you've done that we should take away that would be beneficial.
Well, I would say that one of those things I've already mentioned, and that was finding the balance without giving up on your dreams. That's very, very important, not only for the things you're trying to do in life, but just life itself. The second thing is you have to be flexible, realizing that things are going to change. And if you think that you're going to set yourself up or everything is going to just get worked out so that you can just coast and never learn anything new, never make any changes, never change your mind, it's not going to happen. And so, well, like I have mentioned, is that the music industry is something that took a dramatic change when the streaming industry came about. And you just have to realize as long as you're breathing, you got to be learning. As long as things are going to constantly be changing. I mean, we live in this technological world that your phone in a year from now is outdated. So things are just that's just the way the world is. And if you look back at our parents and grandparents and people that came before us, guess what? They dealt with these same two things. That is, they had to have a balance in their life without giving up on their dreams. And they had to constantly be learning new things, and because the world around them is changing. And those are the two things that I think the most valuable things that I've learned that I would like to pass on.
Yeah, and those are great things. Every warrior knows that change is going to happen, and they also know that they have to take a holistic approach to things, and that there's always a balance. Sometimes you're out of balance one way or another, but you're always seeking to get that equilibrium back, and not without giving up on your dream. I love that. Without giving up on your dream. It's not just because things get a little tough or maybe the balancing gets hard. It's not time to settle and not pursue the dream that God's put in your heart. So that's an awesome, awesome lesson. Well, this has been a great journey, Rickey. I really appreciate it. I'm glad we got back together and we're talking, and I think that this will speak to a lot of folks. How can we continue to be part of your audience? I know one of the things that's very important is that, especially in these times, is to get your followers, get your subscribers, get your audience. And also, I know that it won't be too long before you'll get live audiences again. And so we did a little version of that last Monday, and that was not this last Monday, but the Monday before, and starting to get back. But how do we stay in touch with you? How do we continue to find Rickey Gene Wright?
Well, as I'd mentioned before, I have this domain name that's connected to a website, AmericanaSingerSongwriter.com. And on that website, there is information there about appearance calendars, about new music, about my YouTube channel, which is very important to get subscribers to, about this new thing with the streaming live concerts that everybody has been talking about and trying to figure out, and that's the online tipping jars. But everything, you can go to AmericanaSingerSongwriter.com and you can find out what you need to find out about me. One person told me that they just Googled my name, Rickey Gene Wright, and they were so surprised what they found. And I said, well, that's because I've been involved in business networking and I've learned some things. And so just Google Rickey Gene Wright and you'll see what I've learned in business networking.
Yeah, I love it. Actually, for those who don't know, I mean, he talked about it, but you can find Rickey on Spotify. You can find him on Apple Music, Amazon Music. I love saying, Alexa, play Rickey Gene Wright. And she'll say, shuffling songs from Rickey Gene Wright. And I can listen to that. In fact, I now can just say, Alexa, play my music. And it plays the songs you play the most. And guess what most of the songs, or a lot of the songs are? Rickey Gene Wright. Little Harry Chapin, little James Taylor, little Rickey Gene Wright, little Journey. But it's all in there. So yeah, you can. There's no excuse if you want to find Rickey Gene Wright, and go to AmericanaSingerSongwriter.com, and you can figure out everything that's going on in his world, and it's changing every day, just like everybody's changing. Hopefully, we're making this big turn and heading north again for all of the exciting things in our future. So anyway, I appreciate everybody being here, being on Warrior versus Zombie. Rickey, thank you. It's been an awesome episode, and I appreciate this. I'm sure there's a lot of nuggets that people will take away from your journey, and it's fun to just get to know you even better. For those who would like to continue to follow Warrior versus Zombie, please do so. please go to Apple Podcasts, if that's where you go, or Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Spreaker, CastBox, Deezer, Podcast Addict, Podchaser, or my YouTube channel, at My Vision Warrior, on all of the social sites, Twitter, Facebook, and you can find us. But please share, download, subscribe, and we'll have many more episodes. And let's end this segment with the last outro of It's Not the Getting There by our guest and my theme artist, Rickey Jean Wright.
It's not the getting there, it's the journey every day. It's not a race to see how many people know your name. One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there, when you get there you'll know. One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there, when you get there you'll know.